Hello and welcome. My name is Emily Prieto, and I'm the co-host of the Seeds of Tao Podcast alongside my husband, Joshua Prieto. We're also the co-owners of the Seeds of Tao education platform, an incubator for regenerative entrepreneurs. If you're new to the podcast, this is a podcast for impact entrepreneurs creating regenerative enterprises. We often get asked what exactly a regenerative enterprise or impact entrepreneur is. So if you're wondering, a regenerative enterprise builds triple bottom line profits through the practice of ethics and principles that lead to a more inclusive, fair, and balanced economy. Impact entrepreneurs, or regenpreneurs, as we sometimes like to call them, are those willing and able to take on the financial and personal risks of starting and building regenerative enterprises. You'll get to know exactly what all that means as you join us for this and future episodes, but know that we welcome everyone to join us as we work to build regenerative economies together. That's exactly why we are here doing what we do at Seeds of Tao. Our mission is to help establish regenerative economies in every bioregion by serving individual regenpreneurs like yourself. In this podcast, you'll hear the startup stories in all their glory from impact entrepreneurs all over the globe. You'll learn and grow the skills of building a regenerative enterprise from your peers, mentors, and leaders. Finally, we'll get to know each other as you engage in the podcast and join the wonderful Regenerative Business Economies Network, aka RegenBen, an open community where peers, colleagues, funders, allies, and supporters of regenpreneurs come together to build and the regenerative economies of the future. Join us every month for a wonderful episode as we collectively move beyond sustainability and into our regenerative future. It all starts now.
Welcome to the Seeds of Tao Podcast. My name is Joshua Prieto. I am the co-founder of Seeds of Tao alongside my wife, Emily Prieto, who is also a co-host on this podcast, but she won't be joining me today. Today, we are going to be talking and having a conversation on networking. What is it in reference to the regenerative movement? Why is it important for the regenerative movement to become effective networkers, especially those that are building regenerative enterprises as entrepreneurs? Why does it work for some and not for others? And how do we use networking in the work of regeneration? That's the topic for today. I'm really excited about this because for me, there is so much work to be done in the work of regenerating our people, the planet, and the future, and transitioning away from the current system that we have, which is very extractive, very exploitative, to a more regenerative one that regenerates the life on our Earth, that perpetuates more and more life at all levels, and is a more holistic way of doing so. In a lot of that, a lot of people think that's farming work, that's regenerative agriculture. Well, there's a huge piece of that is actually the people side of things. It's actually getting out there, getting into spaces, and a huge part of the cultural or social side of regeneration, or even permaculture, if we're able to put that word to it, social permaculture, is actually networking with others and collaborating and bringing people together so that we can create the change that we wish to see in this world. So with that, let's dive into it. Let's talk first about why it's important for us to start networking. Why is networking important to us as individuals personally? Why is it important for us as an organization to be involved in the greater networks out there and to be networking within the organization that we are operating, and outside of it with other organizations? And what does that mean for our community? Why is it important for us to network for the community? And how does that translate to why it's important for our planet and for the future that we hope to see? All right, so I really want to start here with why, because there is so much that gets brought up in the work that we do, and we start getting getting right to the weeds of things, right? What's happening? How are we doing it? And tackling that before we really spend time on the why, the purpose, why this is important, and really strongly come from that understanding before we start diving into the how-tos, right? And we're going to get there. We'll get to the how-tos of how we can implement this into the regenerative movement, into our enterprises, into our personal lives. I do want to talk about that, and it may come in other podcast episodes. We're not going to be able to cover everything in this episode, but yeah, let's start talking about it. Why is networking important personally for you, for your ability to create the change that you wish to in the world? I have run into so many opportunities to network and to be the recluse, either one or the other, right? And I guess those are the two extremes that you have. You have someone that's out there talking to everybody every single moment of the day, and really has no time to do like the hands-on work of regeneration, whether it's being in the soil or working with a community organization or planting trees or whatever it is, right? That you would consider that really hands-on work of regeneration versus going out and talking to people and meeting new people and making connections, right? Which arguably I would say that is also a huge part of the work that we're doing in regeneration. The personal importance of networking really is for each individual to discover for themselves. But as an entrepreneur, I could speak to that. And I really want to make sure that we understand for ourselves why we're going about our networking in the businesses that we're starting, the regenerative enterprises that we're fostering. No one is alone. And that's something that has been a really difficult lesson for me. I learned the hard way with this, where I felt so disenchanted by all the different things that were happening in the world. I was stuck in a job that I didn't really feel like was for me. It wasn't necessarily a bad job, but I was stuck in a place where I wasn't fulfilling my true nature and caught in a place where I was in the business as usual field, working as a marketer, finding areas of my skill sets that I enjoyed and that I was good at, and networking with others and getting to know others in the business context was just a part of the work in a lot of ways. But at a certain point, I got fed up with it, and I moved away from everybody, and I became a recluse. I went to go build the off-grid homestead with my family for 3 years, and felt like, yep, I can do this all alone. I can do this by myself. We can go at it alone. And to be honest, I kind of forsook my network that I had already built, and the community that I had already created, and even moved away from family and all of those pieces, family and friends. My network was loose. I was having to reestablish network and realize that I actually needed that in order to create the change that I wanted to create the farmstead that I was dreaming of. I had to have those network pieces. I couldn't go at it alone, or just with my family, right? And I think a lot of us come to some sort of realization that way in our work, that we have to butt up with people. No one is an island, and entrepreneurs really need to get to that conclusion fast, because personally, we can't move on in our business without the help of our network. Entrepreneurs need to understand this more than anyone else. It helps to improve our ideas. If we silo ourselves and we don't go out and share our ideas with others, we don't talk to people about businesses that we're building, the products that we're creating, the services that we're introducing, and the change that we're trying to create, we don't get to improve our ideas. We don't get to take action on them and apply and if we're going to apply permaculture principles to this, apply the feedback that we need to make sure that we're aligning ourselves with the regenerative work and the regenerative systems that are at play. It's where we find traction, understand the needs that we have, and observe the patterns that are happening in the world is through the networks. And, you look at networks, it can be human networks, right? And it's natural networks. We're all interconnected. And this connection, you can look at it as the mycelial network or the network of life and how everything is interwoven and interconnected. Well, our personal connection, if we're walling ourselves off, we're walling ourselves off from others and trying to say that we're not connected to anyone. And so that personally has some really big significance and why it's important for us to begin to build our network, to begin to reach out, to foster and to grow and to weave together with others. So that's the personal side of it. Now, the organizational side of it, why it's important for your organization, I don't really think I have to dive too much into why that's important. But for a regenerative organization, for a regenerative enterprise, it's even more important that we work together and network together our organizations, because we're not going to ever really be the big Amazons and Apples and Microsofts and Googles and Facebooks and of the world, the Walmarts and whatnot, who have their own inner networks to navigate and to utilize resources from. We have to network with one another to make things happen at scale, at grassroots levels, right? And so your network is important for your organization and your neighbor's organization and the regenerative organizations together to build towards a regenerative economy and regenerative economies in each bioregion, because we are individual entities. We are decentralized organizations that aren't trying to take over the world with one particular organization or another, right? And because of that, if we wanted to make impact in the world and influence towards regeneration, we got to work together and we got to network, and we have to be really good at doing that. And that's why it's important for our organization. For communities, as that happens, it kind of, if we're looking at the circles of influence or the zones, the permaculture zones of influence in like this invisible structure of social structures, right? We have our individual self, personal. We have control over our personal network, at least, right? And us getting out in the world. We have even a little bit of control over our organization's ability to network. But then we start moving into community, where really we only have influence. And why networking is important is because that's how our influence is carried out into the greater community, is by the networks that we build, the connections we make with one another. And so community is deep. Networking for our community is deeply important, and a reason why we need to engage in fulfilling individual strong networks is so that we can create influence in our community and create those bioregional connections that really move us towards these regenerative ecosystems and economies. For the planet, I don't know that we have to really dive even further out and how the ripple effect that we get. Again, we don't really have the ability to change systems at scale individually, and be able to have the ability to make that change ourselves, right? We really only have control over our own piece, and we have a very small influence on the global impact of what's happening. But again, grassroots movements, they move together, and if we're building in the networks, this can create planetary change for better or worse, right? The networks, think about the networks that are currently out there that are creating extractive and exploitative forces on and changes to our planet. Well, if those networks then are able to be done through done through regenerative networks, so networks that are helping foster the life on this planet, that really does create change, and that creates change not for it's usually not going to be in this moment, but it's the change that we want to see in the future. And it starts with you being able to get really real and good at developing a strong personal network that has influence with others around it. And as an entrepreneur, that is going to make wonders for you, your business, your community, and beyond, right? And that's really what I want to emphasize when we're talking about the why of networking, is that it extends us, it helps us to be more and connect to the whole, and that is what we're really trying to focus on. Why it works for others and not for some, or networking seems to be a miracle for this one person that that has this great network, and then when I try to go do it, I seem to flounder and stutter and can't meet the people that I want. I can't build the relationships that I need and create collaborations with others. Well, let's talk about that. It is working for others and not for some, for many different reasons. But when it comes to like truly effective networking that we can say that is moving the needle towards regenerative or purposes of creating more life, there are a few things that a few principles that I think are standard and eternal to making that happen. And then there's also some things that are on the exact opposite of that are going to hinder our ability to create regenerative change through our networks that we're building and the networking that we're doing. And I want to probably start there. Let's start there. When it doesn't work, when networking doesn't work, there are really three things that are happening. It could be happening all together. It could be happening at varying degrees. And so it's kind of sabotaging your ability to network. Or you could be really strong in one or the other of these three. And that is, when it doesn't work, when networking doesn't work, there's either some form of greed, pride, or not having purpose. So lack of purpose. And let's unpack these three one at a time. And starting with greed, when there is greed, it looks often like we're keeping score, or one of the ways that it kind of shows up in our networking is that we're keeping score. Yeah, I go and I meet someone, and it is just a transaction at that point, or I don't want to give a part of my network out because this person isn't going to reciprocate, or I know that this person is holding back from me, and so therefore I'm going to hold back from them. or if I do something for this person, I expect something in return is more the baseline part of that, right? So we're keeping score, and that essentially is a part of greed, and that's how greed can often shows up in our networking. Another way that greed can show up in our networking is we're looking at people as dollar signs and trophies, right? I know you've probably experienced it, and when we're talking about this, I'm probably guilty of at least one of these. Every single one of these situations at one point or another in my networking with others. And so I'm not the what would you say, the best one that's practiced this. I'm the one that's learned the hard way, and I'm telling you that these things don't work, right? And you've met these people that have the dollar signs on the dollar signs on their eyes, or the dollar glasses on their eyes, and they look at you as revenue, or as payday, or a way to feed your family, or whatever, right? Or they see you as a trophy. They look at you, or not something that's not desirable for their network, right? And so when they meet you, they look at you as either can this person buy a product, or can this person be someone that is a part of my trophy collection of network, right? And that is another way that greed comes into our networking and destroys it. And it destroys the network, destroys our ability to make it an effective network and perpetuate it. Another way is that greed shows up in our networking is when you don't want to owe someone. So this is kind of the opposite. Like a side of the greed question here, or the greed challenge, is I don't your very scarcity mindset sometimes when you're going into your networking, you're like, oh man, this person's going to take up my time if I engage with them. I don't, if I do something for this person, he may do something for me in return. But then if this person does something for me, I feel obligated to owe him. So you know what? I'm just going to stay away from the networking thing, or talking to people, because I gotta manage myself. I gotta get involved in it. So we get into that kind of siloed perspective again, where I don't need anybody, and we ruin our network, right? And so greed stands in the way of making our networks not work, and it's not going to work for you, right? So there's the first piece of it. When it doesn't work, greed can turn into times where we're keeping score. We're looking at people as dollar signs and trophies, or we're looking at things that someone's going to owe you, and you don't want, or someone's going to owe you, or you're going to owe them. You don't want to put that burden on them, or you don't want to take on the burden, right? Which is another form of greed, of feeling like things are scarce, and that you need to hold on to things, or not let go of things, right? Now, the second piece of this, when networking doesn't work, there is pride involved, and this is a principle. Pride is destructive, in so many ways, but the ways that it shows up in our networking, we see us not being vulnerable.
Let's take a moment for a promo break and tell you about a free resource that Seeds of Tao has to help your regenerative brand break out of the noise.
See the problem in that,
I feel regenerative enterprises and the brands they create for themselves are really setting the bar for what responsible business should look like today and in the future. But I have not always felt this way. In the past, I thought that regenerative brands all looked alike and had no lasting power to stand out in the markets they serve. Don't get me wrong. I've always hoped that the regenerative regenerative movement
and
would
to
turn into a
open
bustling
up
industry
and
over
to
the time.
grow
But when I first
so
got
many
involved
ways.
in
'Cause we
permaculture,
cannot
regeneration, and circular
our
economics,
business,
regenerative
our personal
enterprises had
lives,
a
or
long way to
anything
go.
without being
But
able to
what
open up and
changed?
share
Well,
what's
what changed
happening
is
in
that the
our
regenerative
lives.
brands are getting
And
smarter
that
about
is
how they
a
identify themselves in the
problem with
market.
pride.
We can't all look like
Another
hippies on our
challenge
way
of
to Burning
pride
Man,
in networking
but we
is
also want to
thinking
create
that you're
authentic
bigger
brands that
than
can
the other
stand out
person, right?
against the
That's
extractive behemoths in the market.
the big chest
I am not suggesting you
syndrome,
change the look of your brand into something that is not you. What I am suggesting is that you build an
kind of
intentional brand
energy
identity that
we
your
kinda
ideal
take in
client can
sometimes,
resonate with while
that we kind of puff
also
up our chest.
setting
We're the
you
number one
apart in
this,
the market.
we're that.
If you follow
And
the
if we're
promo link in the
coming
description
into
or
our
in the show
networking
notes,
like
you will find
that,
a free resource to help
we
you
shut other
define
people
your
down
brand's
from being
unique
able to
archetype. It's
come
called the
into to the
Regenpreneur Brand
equation, or
Archetype
even
Quiz,
want
and it's
to,
a
for
free
that matter,
resource to help you build a brand
because
that breaks out of the
you're
noise
making them
and
feel
into
smaller,
the hearts
or
of
you're
your
not
ideal
allowing
clients.
them to be
There's
able
really
to
nothing to lose and
step up
absolutely
and speak to you,
everything to gain.
because you're
With
not
that,
allowing that
let's
to
get back
happen.
to the episode.
And that's another challenge with pride in our networking. Finally, another way that pride shows up in our networking is that we talk too much about ourselves. We don't allow for people to speak because of our pride or insecurity around our status or other pieces, which is related to this challenge of pride. We start talking about ourselves, and I have encountered this so many times, but even just recently, I think, was it yesterday, I had a conversation with someone. It was an introductory call on ways that we might be able to collaborate. And during that call, she only let me talk for like 5 minutes of a 30, what was supposed to be a 30-minute call, ended up being like a 45-minute call. And I got like maybe 7 minutes of conversation, talk time in there to be able to respond to what she was saying. And I didn't even share any of what I could possibly do for her or collaborate with her, because I was just clarifying some of the things that she was talking about. And she was really, getting her message inside of the conversation out. But I could only had time to ask clarifying questions. And then it was time's up. Like I had to go on and move on to other things. And we didn't find a way to collaborate. And I had to say, I'm sorry. I don't know ways that we can take this conversation from here right now. I do have to move on to another call here in just a moment and prep for that call. And I'll maybe reach out in the next little bit, but I'm much more likely to reach out if in that conversation there's listening involved in there, that the pride kind of resides, or the challenge of talking about yourself subsides, and you look and see on the other side and open it up to be able to talk to the other, right? And so that's one way that pride really does limit our ability to make networking effective. Finally, so that's pride and the challenges and ways it shows up that I've seen in networking. The final area and reason why that we don't see networking work for a lot of people is when there is no purpose.
Let's take a moment to talk about your own personal regenerative journey. Both Josh and I care deeply about you, the path you've taken, the work you've put in. It's absolutely critical to helping us transition from systems that take life into systems that bring life. You are critical to that transition. Seeds of Tao believes in you, the entrepreneur that has found that business is more than about just creating profit. It's about the impact you have on life and the life you nurture. There is responsibility and even risk in that role. This is why you listen and observe to what Mother Nature is telling you, what your community is telling you, and what your heart is telling you. As you're listening, you cultivate a regenerative enterprise that respects and nurtures life. This is why we believe in you. You are the keystone species that is critical to life on this planet. Everyone has their part and no one else can play yours. As the entrepreneur, you're going to face challenges and feel like everything is working against you. It's a lonely job and you get stuck, face rejection, learn skills you never thought you'd have to, and are constantly placed outside of your comfort zone. It's times like these that Josh and I have found ourselves holding on to one simple truth. We are all connected. You were never meant to go it alone, and it's not the way that nature intended it to be, so stop trying to. Seeds of Tao is now launching its first paid regenerative enterprise incubator to support you during the most difficult parts of your journey. This is a 6-month cohort where we will not be holding your hand as an entrepreneur, but rather we'll be helping you to swim on your own. There's a lot of responsibility and risk you took on when you jumped into the water to become an entrepreneur. You're not only going to learn to swim, but you're going to get to dry land. This incubator is for the impact entrepreneur that has already jumped in the water and is now working through the most difficult part of their journey to triple bottom line profits. The most critical skill you'll need along this journey is to determine, set, and accomplish the most important goals for your business. On day 1, you will set the most wildly important goal for your business so that if you were to accomplish this goal, it would transform your business more than anything else you could have done. In this cohort, you will do the work and build the habit of becoming a resilient and impactful entrepreneur. Are you wanting to find out more about the first cohort? If so, check out the link in the description or the show notes.
If there's no purpose for what we're networking on, there's not a clear purpose, we shouldn't even be talking. We should maybe sit and think a little bit about what our purpose is, and really get an understanding of that. There is a lot to be said about having a goal. And this is where I often get into conversations with others and networking, and a clear understanding of your purpose and why you're doing things. That's the start. And then putting it into a goal that's easily digestible for yourself, but for others, really. So that when you go out and you network with people and you start talking to people, you're able to see, or they're able to see clearly how they might help you in that goal, right? And perpetuate it, and how their goal might align with yours, that you can tackle it together and collaborate together on it, right? So not having a clear goal and purpose is one of the reasons why networking really falls short. You get on a conversation. I know you've experienced this yourself, and you start talking to someone, and you're like, "What is this person doing? I have no clue. I don't know what to talk to this person about, besides the weather and small talk, right? And maybe, the things that they're passionate about. But if they're lacking direction in that passion, it's just pure wanderlust. And there is a time and place for that to discover. And I'm not saying that when you're networking, you're not going to be in those moments where you're just getting out there just to be able to talk to others and to feel like you can talk to others. There is that, right? And that is helpful to yourself and to others to be able just to talk, whether it's like getting grief out or being able to talk through thoughts in your mind and those types of things. But to be able to make it effective in the network and it move and perpetuate things forward, you have to have a strong purpose and clear goal, being to be able to collaborate and to move people forward. And if you don't, the conversation will stop at a certain point. You won't be able to continue having those conversations, and it will not continue to move forward, right? And that's what we want to do. We want to be able to keep our networking moving, keep our network growing, and that has to be done through you first having a strong purpose and creating clear goals and being able to articulate it. And then when there is this challenge that you see of no purpose, sometimes it ends up looking like you're not putting in the work to make that goal meaningful to others. So I've had people that come in, they got a clear goal, they got a clear purpose of what they're doing, but they're not putting in the work, and they're almost expecting. This is how it feels on the other side when you're talking to someone in this situation. You're almost feeling like this person wants you to do the work for them, right? Like, oh, I need funding for this really big purpose and goal that I have. But first I need the funding so then I can go out and do it. But I haven't done anything else to get this done, or I've been in research mode for years, or there's so many different scenarios that kind of enlighten you that this is maybe where this person is in their networking, that they're not putting in the work to make that goal meaningful to me, to others, to the network at large, so that when you come to the table, you've done the work, that there is something for us to talk about, for us to engage with, for me to help you on, right? Otherwise, it's meaningless. There's no purpose for us to be able to talk. And third part of this no purpose is really not understanding. So it's the other side of the coin, right? It's not understanding the goals and purpose of others. Not some of that comes with not being a good listener. Some of it comes with the others not articulating it. But sometimes you have to put in the work as a networker to understand others well enough so that you can kind of get past all of the pieces that they're talking about, really dive down and maybe even help them articulate a goal that they have around their purpose, and help them with that goal, help them to achieve something. And that takes that's actionable on your part, right? It takes understanding, it takes reaching out, and it takes help. It takes charity. It takes doing something for someone to be able to show that you're there for them and to help them accomplish and live their purpose, right? So those are the three big things that I see that are hindering us from creating the networks that we desire, and networking in the ways when it doesn't work. There's greed out there, there's pride, and there's a lack of purpose for what you're doing, or the networking that you're doing. Right now, let's look at the other side of this. When it does work, what does it work? What are the principles at bay here, and that we're utilizing to make our networking work? And it's really the opposite of the challenges that we shared in networking. When we have charity rather than greed, our networking lights up and it works, right? People give without asking for something in return. That's when there is charity in our networking, and things start happening. Things start opening and loosening up. People see that you really care. They want to be engaged with the work that you're doing, and they want to engage themselves and the work that they're doing with you. And so the barriers start to open up, the network starts to grow and to strengthen, the connections solidify. When there is charity, people make themselves useful. They will go out of their way to do something for you and do something for the network and others. It may not be directly for you, right? When there is charity in our networks, people start to see that I can make a difference. I can get this type of positive good and energy out into the world, even if it's not benefiting me personally at this moment or whatever. It always comes back, and so you should really never have to worry about that. But people make themselves useful when there's charity, and that helps open networks and helps you to create a better network personally. When there's charity, people take them up on the offer. When I am being useful and providing value in each interaction that I have, and then when it comes down to actually offering up something, it's another form of my charity, right? And so my offer that people may say, well, what's the price and all of this other stuff? Well, that doesn't really become as much of a challenge if all things align when you are doing it from a place of charity, right? That they take you up on what you say, the call to action that you have, offer that you have, the product or service that you're providing, because it's coming from a place of charity, right? It's not coming from a place of sales goggles, of greed, of scarcity. It's coming from a place of, I have something to offer you that's going to be a benefit and it's going to help, right? When there is humility, is the big piece, and the next big piece of this that counteracts the pride that we have in networking. When there's humility in our networking, people share the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that stuff comes up, and people are then able to want to help or know how they can help, or know that they can't help, and therefore can direct you to someone that can, or know not to linger in that place because they're unable to help you at that moment, right? But if you're humble and you share, stuff that's going good, obviously we want to hear the good, right? Stuff that's going bad, and stuff that's just ugly, that you're that no one really wants to see. And there's a gradient, I guess you could say, of this ability to share. You shouldn't share everything with someone you just met, right? There takes some validating and time for you to get to know this person before you divulge the very bad and the very ugly, and even the very good, right? People don't want to hear all your good exploits and you pile on the good to them if they just barely met you, right? So there is a gradient to that. And as you get to know someone and you're able to share, there's the ability to allow for someone to help you, allow for people to get to know you, to connect, and for you to help them as they are willing to share with you, because there's this openness and connectedness to that moment, right? You're opening up to them, they're opening up to you. So when there's humility, people share. When there's humility, people keep a beginner's mind. And this is something that I've seen in so many cases of networking, where I get into a conversation with someone and they are ready and willing to learn, and it's refreshing to see, right? That they start with this concept of having a beginner's mind, which in Eastern philosophy is really attached to our ability to learn and to grow, right? And if we're able to keep that beginner's mind, when we come into our network, it's always going to come from a place of growth and expansion, rather than of closing off and shriveling back in, right? Because if your cup is already full, it's bound to overflow, and that's where humility really does help you to increase your network and to grow and thrive, for it to grow and thrive. Now, when there is humility in your networking, people easily connect and relate to you. And that's again kind of going back to the first, where we're able to see this opening of someone as we humbly listen, as we allow for space, and we are not forcing our will on others, and we want to sincerely understand another person. right? And that connection, it really does open us up. It opens our network to for people to relate, to understand, and then to want to be together and collaborate together. When networking is working and you're doing it right, we are also sharing our goals, and there is a shared goal, right? So this is the counter side of when there's no purpose in your networking. Well, the other side of that is when you have a shared goal, people feel they can contribute, people feel accomplished, and they feel understood. And this is where networks thrive. When someone feels like they can contribute, their purpose is being fulfilled, right? They light up, their energy, their light shines and expands and radiates, and that radiates into the network, into the community, and beyond, right? And so having a shared goal and finding the shared goal really does help you to make the contributions, to create the impact, because we light up, because we feel like we can contribute. And people, as we align ourselves with goals and find goals that we can align on, people feel accomplished. We're getting things done, and that is a huge dopamine boost, right? When we get something done, when we get that check off, and the goal that we shared is being accomplished, and we're moving towards it. And then when we accomplish it together, that is some of the biggest shared joy that you could ever experience. And I'm going to just take an example of a family, right? When you have a child or you have children, and a child sets a goal, and the parent or the siblings come in to help that person set that goal, you see so much connection, so much love, so much, and you have so much joy when that child accomplishes that goal and everybody else help that person to accomplish it in the family. And the family is more connected. And if you look at just that family unit, that family network, and then you expand that into a business or a community, and that type of stuff is happening where a shared goal comes together and you accomplish it, how much energy that creates to perpetuate more and more good, more and more regenerative work, if that's our goal, right? Now, when there is a shared goal, people feel understood, because I have to get to a point where I understand your goal well enough and what you want to accomplish, and I understand myself well enough and have been able to articulate myself well enough that we both can then feel understood. And what that does for your network and your community and everything that you're working towards with this goal is amazing. It's exponential, right? Just that feeling of being understood, and it can be the starting place, but I also think it's the ending, right? We all want to be understood, and we all want to have the ability to be in community with others that we can maybe have differing opinions, but we can understand each other, and there's empathy and there's love, right? And compassion. And that's from a strong understanding of one another. All right. I've done some soapbox in there. I've done some personal understandings and life philosophies. But hopefully these principles that are behind these are ringing true to you, because those are eternal, regardless of what my perspective is and what's going on. Charity is always going to be charity, and it's always going to be something that is going to lift up everybody and everything around it, right? Humility, same thing. When you have humility, things are going to happen. Things are going to open up and create in the world. And having a shared goal and finding a common goal is always going to bring us together, help us to be united and connect us. So that's really what I want to bring forward to you. Let's make that happen. When it works, there's charity, humility, and a common goal. And remember, when you're not doing well in your networking, it's probably because of some form of greed, pride, or lacking purpose. How do we use this now in our work as regenerative enterprise builders? Well, let's start with your purpose and goal. You got to start there. You got to be clear. You got to understand it. And that's some deep work. That's some deep internal work. And sometimes we neglect it for this, that, and the other. But it takes time and it takes commitment to really understand your purpose, have a goal, set out on it, and utilize it. Right? Now, if you're in this work as an entrepreneur and you have a goal and a strong purpose behind that goal, make and keep a list of people who can help you to accomplish that goal, right? Start writing those people down. I have done this exercise several times. I continue to keep a list. I keep a running list of people that I either have talked to or want to talk to. And I have a goal that is associated to those people, that I need to talk to this person because I want to accomplish this, or I want to accomplish this. And these people are people that can help me to do that. And that's really a big first step in us being able to accomplish something. Now, a third step that I want you to kind of take action on in your work as a regenerative entrepreneur and starting to build your network is learn the goals of those on that list. You have this list, but what are their passions? What are they working on? So we can align with them. What can we align? How can we align on their purpose, their goal, and start to have a shared goal together? And then it's now you got to get out there. You can't just be the recluse. You got to get out there and connect with others, connect to the people on that list, build relationships with them, and be of value, right? Where can you add value to their goals? The value that you add will come back to help you in yours, because especially if you've aligned your goals with others, that just happens naturally. So I have some helpful resources for you in doing this, and I really hope that you take me up on these offers and resources. The first one that I want you to engage with, if you haven't already, is the Regen Ben map. And you can find that on our website. You go to www.seedsofdao.com and you click on resources. I'm actually going to the website right now because I'm forgetting where I actually put it. So I'm going to the website. On the main navigation, if you click on offerings, you'll see at the very bottom of that list is the Regen Ben map. And it'll actually take you to a podcast episode. So if you want to, you can listen to this podcast episode and get more acquainted with when we release this Regen Ben map. We created a podcast on it and to share more about it and why we were doing it. But this map, you can be a part of it and you can actually look at it. If you scroll down, there's an image that you can click on that will actually take you to the map. And you can start navigating. And it's a map of what we're trying to accomplish is having all of the entrepreneurs and all the enterprises that are doing regenerative work on this map, right? Whatever gradient of regeneration you're doing, right? Some people think that regeneration is just no-till agriculture, and great, that's fine. There's a component to that, Obviously, there's more to it than just no-till, but that's a certain gradient or variation of that, or no chemical or no whatever or beyond organic. All of these different pieces. There's people working on this stuff. We want to be able to connect and collaborate with everybody to help us learn and to grow and to expand and to do all the really awesome things that we talked about in this episode that networking can accomplish for the regenerative movement. It happens by understanding those connections, and this is what this map is for. So you can go and you can look at an impact on entrepreneur in the movement, see what business they have, see where that business is affecting different bioregions geographically, find out where they're serving or what categories of service they're in, the earth systems that they're affecting. This is the type of things that we're trying to understand and build connections to. Find out who's in what industries and verticals, at what stage of business they're in. We're trying to figure out and add these types of pieces. But it comes to the point where you need to get yourself on this map. You need to be utilizing, or I don't like to need on you. I don't like to shit on you, but you can utilize this as a strong way for you to build and grow your network. And it's a tool for you to do so. So check out the Regen Ben map, which Regen Ben stands for the Regenerative Business Economy Network map. And then there's actually a community around that too. So that's the second resource that I would love for you to take advantage of. Is we have a beautiful community that is budding. I'm not going to lie to you. At this point in the recording of this podcast, we're still struggling to build the engagement in the community. But the people that are subscribed to the community, the people that are coming to events, people are coming to the events. We're having great conversation on our think tanks. So please join us there within the community. We're having master classes, entrepreneurs teaching skill sets that they've mastered and are now sharing with other regenerative enterprise builders, and other events that happen. We're having a startup shower next month during our think tank, where we're highlighting Olazoi, and I'm excited to share their, you have baby showers when you give birth to this new life that you brought into the world. Well, you're bringing in new life when you bring in a new business. And Olazoi is a new business, and we're going to help them and support them in bringing in this new life into the economy here and building towards that regenerative economy. There's so many different things that we're doing to build community together so that we can network and have space. And then now we have this wonderful dashboard, this community dashboard. And if you come in and join in, and this is where we're needing your engagement, is come in, get to know people, have some conversations, chats within this community dashboard. You can actually have live meetups in this dashboard. You can bring people together. I have it open to where you can go into a live room, similar to like, what would you call it? It's like a private, you can do a privately owned chat space or whatever, right? Trying to compare it to other platforms that I've seen out there. But yeah, you can create your own live room, bring people into it, have people have a round table around certain topics and whatnot, and kind of host different conversations within this group on different topics that are a part of your purpose and your goals that you're moving forward, right? So this is all free. It's all free resources for you at this point, and I want to keep it that way for you. There's also a wonderful organization that is helping to build networking opportunities and opportunities for you to meet new people within the regenerative movement, and that's something that I've been really close to from the beginning of its start. It's Regeneration Pollination. And they host an event online that's kind of bridges, one event bridges Oceania with as much of the world as we can. And then another one bridges the US with as much people as they can, right? And so we're pollinating the regenerative work and networking with one another there. So all of these, I will have links in the show notes and description of the podcast. So go check that out. Go follow the link to the show notes, and you'll find links to these resources. Finally, I'm really excited for this one, actually. And this is coming up in the beginning of the year, but we're going to open up enrollment for this. Now, one of the biggest challenges that entrepreneurs have when they're accomplishing a goal is being able to have a strong enough network and and focus and accountability and camaraderie with others to help them move their goals forward. And Seeds of Tao has been alpha testing and kind of beta testing, and now we're doing like a paid beta, a cohort, an incubation program is what it is. So Seeds of Tao incubation is now coming the beginning of the year. We're launching our first incubator, and we're opening up enrollment for the incubation in October. So here coming up in a couple weeks is open enrollment for our first cohort. There is a few principles that we really strongly focus on helping you build network, right? And part of that is helping you to make that list of the people that are going to help you accomplish your goal, help you to be held accountable to finding out their goals and figuring out ways to do so, reaching out, using the community of the cohort to be able to, and the resources and mentors within the cohort to be able to accomplish your goal and network within your cohort. These are all pieces that we use strong networks for, and is going to be a great resource for you. So I would love for you to take advantage of that. All right. So with that, I don't have anything else to tell you today. I really do want to keep this conversation going, though. So join us in the community, the Regen Ben community. There's actually a circle within the Regen community that's called podcast, and we'll post this podcast, and then we can have a thread around this conversation, right? So keep the conversation going. What are some of the things that are lighting you up in your networking ability? What are the challenges that you are bumping into? And yeah, let's work through those together. Let's have conversation about it. Are there other resources that you've come in contact with that are helpful? Other communities? Let's talk about those in the Regen Ben community. All right. Thank you again for joining us on another episode of the Seeds of Tao Podcast. And I will see you next time. Ciao.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the podcast. It really is a blessing and a pleasure to bring each episode to you. So what'd you think? If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review or follow us on the podcast platform of your choice. Each review really does help us to further the reach of this podcast and move our mission forward to build regenerative economies in every bioregion. If you have a suggestion or feedback for us, please let us know in the open and free Regenerative Business Economies Network, known as Regen Ben, which is linked in the description and in the show notes of this episode. Regen Ben also has an awesome community request form that allows you to suggest guests, register to be a guest on the podcast, and share your own regenerative entrepreneur startup story, or any other suggestion you may have for the community. Without your feedback and requests, this podcast and community wouldn't be what it is, so please let us know. Now, this may be bye for now, but remember, it doesn't end here. It has only just begun. The regenerative economies of the future start now with you.